obscure world of parking. We use it every day, but have we really capitalized on the intricacies of our industry? In this podcast, the Parking Network will go behind the scenes and talk to industry professionals about all things parking, from the horizon of evolving technology and even stories of the old days. We hope to encourage and inspire operators and property managers alike to look at parking through a new lens.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the next episode of the Our Parking Industry podcast. Thanks for joining us today. In the studio, I have two gems of the parking industry, our TPN founder, Clyde Wilson, and then we have Raf Abanilla, who is the Senior VP of Operations and Innovation at Parking Concepts. Good morning, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Raf, would you kick us off by just giving us a little bit of information about you, about how you made it to the parking industry?
Sure, 100%. Just celebrated my 25th year in the parking space. Started when I was in college, needed some gas money, maybe some beer money, and got hired in Glendale, California. I started as a valet and a cashier, and I remember my first day, I had to clock in around 5 o'clock in the morning, and the manager said, go, pick up that broom and dustpan. And, there's 3 garages and have at it. I did that, I did that for a few months and was fortunate to, grow within that team. And, after a couple of years, I think I was promoted to a portfolio manager. I was with Standard Parking at that time. And I figured, I think there's a career path here somewhere. I'll see what I can do in parking. Really been fortunate to have been surrounded with folks that gave me the opportunity. Yeah, it was the first year in parking was pretty interesting. There was one morning where I was sweeping the garages and came down to a level and then came back up and all the debris and leaves were back because it was so windy. I think I quit that day. That's parking, right?
Job security right there.
Absolutely. So yeah, I spent about 20 years working for national firms, and the last 5 years I've been with Parking Concepts based in Los Angeles. And it's I guess that's the gist of my parking story.
So how does your history of valet and sweeping and cashier, how does that form the decisions that you make as you're in upper level management now?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helped me. It's a great foundation, right? I think I've done all of the roles and jobs in parking in general as far as out in field. So I understand, what they're going through. I have empathy, standing on your feet for 8 hours, 10 hours, being traffic ambassadors, fielding customer complaints. So I get it. I kind of get the stress that's out there. So when we're making decisions up in corporate, I make sure that I consider all of that. And I think it's an advantage that I kind of know both worlds as far as frontline and really being in the corporate world.
What would you say to someone who's in upper level management who doesn't have that history of frontline work?
Yeah, I say go park cars, right? Try it out, spend the time out there. I think I think that's the good data that you can get is really out in the field, really touching the customers and your partners. But yeah, it's probably not a bad idea to really spend some time out in the field and not just behind the desk. I think that would be one of my advice, at least.
It's funny as we do these podcasts, how many people had their start somewhere associated with valet. It's a long list. I don't know, Leigh probably knows the statistics better than I do, but it's a fairly high percentage of the people that we do podcasts with that are all people that are up in the industry, but they start the story just like yours. Well, I started as a valet.
Well, Clyde, it's the tips, right? I mean, there were good tips. I may or may not have reported all the taxes, but the tips were good.
Yes, that's true. And it's funny how mine is in similar in a way. When I started as the operations manager of the city of Nashville, which was the corporate office of Central Parking. But I signed my paperwork at about 7 o'clock one night. on a Friday evening. And as soon as I signed, they said, okay, we're opening the blah, blah, blah hotel, the new building. It's a valet operation. You have to go train the valets how to park cars. And I thought, who's going to train me how to park cars? And so I drive down there and I'm driving in and they're all lined up, all the valets. They're all lined up in the portico share there as I drive in. And I went, what am I going to do? So mine started in valet just like everybody else. Fortunately, this is a perfect parking story. As I'm driving up, of all the guys lined up there, one of them had a uniform on, right? So I said, okay, we'll see. So I pull around the corner, park my car, and he knows I don't have a clue, right? So he comes walking over to me to meet me at the car and walks back with me. Well, his name, now this guy's a valet, right? In 1980, 79, 80, when there's still a lot of stick shift cars, his one arm, his right arm was amputated. He was working in a meat packing plant and they packed his own. And so this guy could valet cars like nobody. He said, don't worry, I'll teach him how to do that. You just tell him how to greet customers and do those things. And it was a typical parking guy. It just saved my butt on how to do this, but it was in the valet business.
Valet is a skill set for sure. I still back in my car, every time I park. That's just a habit. I intend to hopefully teach my kids, I have 2 boys, how to drive stick, because I think that's rare nowadays.
Well, Raf, you're known in the industry for kind of having a foot in both worlds, like old school, new school, tech forward, but you're also deeply people oriented. So where did that leadership come from? What is your motivation to stay up to speed on both being a tech person, but also being a people person?
I think I'm right in between. I mean, for lack of a better term, old school versus kind of the new school parking, which again, I think it's an advantage. I think early in my career, I knew my clients, my customers, and their habits, right? I might not know their names, but I surely could recognize the face, and I can tell you what kind of car they drive, right? What time they come in the garage, if they go out for lunch, right? If they're having an affair, right? Because you can tell. But that's the kind of relationship and familiarity really that shape how I think about service, right? It's really that personal interaction and partnerships and relationships that you build. Today, parking is a little different, right? Data and analytics. But I don't see those worlds as in conflict. I think the balance is what matters, respecting the fundamentals of operations and relationships while really maybe leveraging modern technology. I think really that's how you deliver a high quality of service. So I think I consider myself fortunate that I'm in the middle of that I understand that we need to adopt and utilize and leverage new tech. But at the same time, our posture has always been and always will be, hey, at the end of the day, it's a customer centric industry, right? A customer service, I should say. And that's our posture, and that's always going to be our focus, is the customer service.
It's good to see as we, as the parking network, get to travel around the country and see all kinds of different parking operations, operators and operations. It's good to hear what you just said, that, the core of our business is still, we're a service business. I see the things pulling on it all the time, trying to turn us into something else. But in the end, our job is to get the cars off the street, get them parked, get the money in the bank, and make sure everybody's happy. Those things, no matter what technology does, never change. So it's good to hear you say that. Of course, I knew that about you, and I knew that about the people that you work around. You guys are the ultimate in this. But I think everybody needs to hear it.
Thank you. I mean, it's one thing that's really clear, as far as our strategic goals and how we make decisions is, hey, are we delivering the highest quality of customer service? Yes, we want to have the latest and greatest tech and making sure that we're in that game, but we understand that we park cars.
So if we're wanting to keep our feet on this foundation of customer service, parking cars, getting the money in the bank, but also we have to choose the tools to help us do the job every day, right? And we have to choose vendors who can provide the tool that we need to get our job done. What advice do you have for operators and managers who are shopping for new technology or shopping for new vendors? What questions do they need to be asking? And maybe what are some questions that they're not asking that they should be? Yeah. So what questions should they be asking to make the right choice?
Yeah. And I think a lot of us are facing sort of that challenge and pain point of, and then there's so many like cool new things and, startups. And, I think I'm on a demo at least once a week, and, I think I keep it simple, right? I always ask, what is this really solve? Is there a problem that this tech is solving? Right? Or is this just like shiny and cool, or is it really solving a pain point? I think it's important that, that's clear that, hey, this is elevating the experience and not just, making it more complicated. But on the people side of it, I think that's where I come back to is, who are the partners who's going to answer the phone when there's a fire, happening at the location. Right. And that's how we choose our partners, really. And we're always kind of long term looking. We're not in the, PCI has been in business 50 years now, and we're always looking for long term partners, and that we base our decisions really around that. Right. We like meeting, the principles and understanding the structure and really where the money is coming from and who's, who owns what. It's hard to track nowadays, right? Understanding who's really behind the money. We're kind of old school on that, like doing our due diligence, and we want to make sure that our partner is also understanding who we are and what our values are, so that way, we make sure that we're aligned. And at the end of the day, I think, there's platforms out there and tech stacks. A lot of them work. A lot of them do what, do the job, but it's really the people behind the solutions, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate that piece of advice very much. We had the pleasure of interviewing the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee. So catch that episode.
Okay.
But that was one of the things he said too, is when working with a vendor, double check that they have an accessible and expert customer service platform available. So you're resonating that conversation, bringing that to my mind. You mentioned in your brief history of your career that you had people along the way who helped form you into the leader and the manager that you are today. Would you tell us about your mentors and maybe some of the big takeaways that you still think about today?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, there's quite a bit of them, and I'll name some names, but I think most of them, I really look up to them because of how they treat their people, right? And that's really the bottom line is, hey, I'm building a great team, and we take care of our clients, we take care of our people. The money and the rest will come. At Standard, I worked there, and Ed Simmons was there, and Dave Guilfoyle, and the Wensley brothers really helped me out. And then I went to Reef. Steve Resnick was there, and Jeff O'Kyle. And then obviously the last 5 years has been with PCI, and I can't say enough about Gil Burnett and my boss, Dave Mueller. Really empowered me and just kind of gave me the runway to, figure things out and really be a leader. So I'm very appreciative of those folks. I'm sure I'm missing a few names, but, they really, empower you, and they stay away and, kind of let you figure it out. And that's really ultimately, why I was able to grow within the space, having that ability of, getting creative, I guess.
That was a good list of names that you came up with the companies that you worked for. So that's really helpful to have. Not only were they good mentors, but you had a variety of them. So you get to kind of see all the different styles that make them into who they are. As you were listening, some of those guys I haven't talked to in a year, but I remembered all the names.
Yeah, very, very fortunate and blessed that I've been surrounded by good folks. And in the industry in general, I think 90% are good people. There's some 10% that, like we say, bad actors. But I think that's one special thing about the parking industry is, you know, everyone's willing to help, and I think for the young folks too, that's I think why I'm very passionate about what I do is I want to be able to help, kind of the new young professionals. And really, what's the saying? English is my second language. So I don't know what the right saying is, but, I want to be able to help, the young generation and really give them the opportunity that I was able to.
Sure. Like pay it forward, right?
Pay it forward. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So on that kind of train of thought, what mistake do you see talented young people make that maybe hurts their career or stunts their career?
Yeah, I think parking, like we talked about already, it's a service industry. It's great that you would know tech and you can analyze data and you're able to figure out the process and tech part of it, but it's really a relationship industry. And I think the young folks tend to focus on the being behind the computer instead of, relationships and putting themselves out there. I think that's an opportunity for young folks is, hey, how do we deliver the service? Yes, technology, but what about the people piece of it? So I think there's definitely an opportunity there to highlight that.
Maybe you've hit on, as you were talking, I thought maybe you've hit on why the people with that start in the valet service come forward, because that's the ultimate customer contact and customer experience. You're going to meet them getting out of their car and getting them in the car. You can't meet them any better than that. No other position in the parking industry puts you as close to what we do as that one. And maybe that's why that the valet people, the great managers who are young and are trying to find a way forward, they come out of the valet business. I've never thought about that.
Yeah, you have to try to remember their names. And hey, Mr. Smith, how was the golf game last week? Right? I mean, that's just part of the spiel, right? So I think that skill set, you're able to really use that, as far as growing in the careers.
So, Leigh, you can start the valet business anytime now.
You've convinced me. I actually was having the same idea. Like, man, I need a side hustle, improve my people skills. So gentlemen, a question for both of you, really. We talk often on the expo floor and then also here at TPN that the industry as a whole is really in a season of transition. So I'd like to hear you guys have a nice dialogue about some of the challenges, maybe some of the missed opportunities, maybe some great advancements. Let's talk about what you've seen, what you hope to see. Tell me your thoughts on all that.
And Clyde, I'm hoping you agree, but I think we have an opportunity. Well, I think it's a problem right now as an industry, how we deliver the parking experience. Prior it was a manual ticket and there's a cashier. It doesn't matter who the operator is, right? Then you have a ticket dispenser, you pull up in the garage, there's a button that you push, a ticket comes out. Nowadays, even as a parking guy, I pull up in a garage and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, oh, how do I navigate my way around this garage? Maybe I have to tap my card or the gate goes up or there's a QR code that I have to figure out. So I think the consumers are thinking more about like the experience instead of having a little bit of consistency on how we deliver the parking experience. I'm confident that as an industry, we're going to figure it out. Obviously, there's some big players that are really changing the behavior. But right now, I think it's a problem, that inconsistency on the parking experience across the board. What do you think, Clyde?
I know, that's you've kind of headed down the same path that we talk about all the time. You can't have a customer drive into a garage and have to read a book to figure out how to get in. You have to go through every industry, and the ones that failed to do this failed. Every industry has to move forward. But it goes back to when you're a customer contact business, you have to go forward with the technology and the customer in mind. And right now we seem to be moving toward thinking more about the technology than we are about the customer and how the customer uses this. You can't drive up and have to look around and read to figure out how the heck do I get in this place. So, what I think, and our group has talked about this a lot, as we move through this transitional period that we're in, you, all the people like you, us, have to at some point start narrowing this down to some commonality of how this is going to work going forward. So tech people are out there. That's great. Hi, guys. It's really up to us. And until we start working together to move forward, we're going to stay in this kind of difficult period that we're. So it's really up to us to move this forward in the right way and get to that how this business is going to work.
Agreed. Talk about kind of cool things that I've seen. We've recently met with like a venue, sport venue, operations team, and they're already doing facial mapping for their food and beverage, right? You kind of pull in and you get what you want and you get charged magically, whether it's working 100% of the time or but they're trying to deliver that same experience in their parking garages, right? They say, hey, the facial mapping tech is working out in the food and beverage piece of our business. We want to have a consistency and experience when you go in our venue. You opt in and it's your credential, right? Pretty cool in concept, right? Obviously I have a bunch of questions, but those type of discussion, and I know there's some pilot testing that's already happening. Kind of looking forward to how that's going to pan out. But if that's the experience and we're able to make that work and make it consistent, I think it's pretty cool.
We're certainly seeing that move into the airport check-in where you go through security more and more. Most of those are gradually changing over now to facial recognition.
It's one of those security versus your convenience, right? You're going to opt in. Everyone's saying, your mugshots everywhere anyway. But, it'll be interesting to see if parking is one of those where people would kind of opt in and say, oh, you could have my facial mapping in your system.
That's where, again, it falls on us to make sure that, unlike what has just happened in our industry, to make sure that the bad side of this doesn't end up in the news every night. I think there are a percentage of people out there who are never going to do this. As the younger people come along, more of them will do okay, but we can't have a big security problem because it turns it the other way. So again, it's up to those of us providing the business, especially you're providing the business, goes back to what Leigh said earlier. You got to make the right purchase decisions. How do you decide what we're going to do? How do I decide what I'm going to purchase? So because we can't have that big security error pop up.
Agreed.
And that's kind of in facial recognition or whichever other direction we go. We've got to make sure that we're working. And so the good players like you and the other ones that we all know who they are, the good players have got to step up to the plate. Fortunately, that means we're all going to have to work together, something that has been a struggle for us over the last 50 years.
Yeah, I think more and more though, and I think that's why it's important to be active in conferences and join associations and really get to know the players in our space. I think more and more people are willing to partner up. I think there's a lot of consolidation and acquisition in our space. I think everyone's just wanting or willing to be friendlier because, hey, you never know who you're going to work with next week, right?
That's right. That's a perfect example. In the past, we were all staunch competitors. It was Lee's business. We were competitors. I wasn't talking to anybody.
Yeah.
But today we do have to. I mean, we can go run our own business, but in some respect, because we're a transitional business, we have to be a better team now than we were in the past.
So together, you guys have 7 decades of experience in the parking industry. My question for both of you, like in light of all of your experience and in light of this season of transition and with your hopes for more collaboration across the industry, my question now is, what makes you excited about going to work every day? What makes you excited about this industry? What brings you hope? Kind of what's the passion juice that runs through your veins these days?
I mean, as a parking guy and just a parking nerd, whatever you call it, I mean, I'm excited to see how our industry is getting all these attention, all the money, really, but we're getting a ton of attention, and it's making I think it's elevating all of us as professionals. I think our skill set has changed, right? And obviously the tech piece of it, but just excited to see how we're going to continually evolve, right? As an industry. But me personally, what gets me going, and it might sound cliche or corny, but it's really the people, in my team, and having a little bit of an effect on the lives, and I'm able to help them grow, help their family. Just, I think that keeps me going. I don't know if that makes me sound old, but that's really what fuels me, is to make sure that I do a great job, or a decent job at least, to help the team kind of succeed. I know it might sound cliche, but it's true. I think the people for me is really what matters.
I think since you asked us both the question, I'll quickly give you my take on this. First of all, as Raf was talking, I was able to sit back and think a little bit about answering this. I started in a business that was a 100% cash business, and cash required a tremendous number of people. So for a young guy with a tremendous amount of energy, managing a whole city of operations, it was great for me. And I enjoyed the people that were our cashiers and stuff. I enjoyed that so much, helping them, managing them, getting them through their days. But as you move forward and you get a little older, that meant so much of our energy was focused on us, our staff, getting the money in the bank, and we weren't able to focus as much time on the customer and the transaction. So the difference I see is we've just kind of, you can't see my hands in this, but we've kind of moved from this huge business that was very cash and employee oriented, to try to get it open every day, get the cars off the street, to this business that is more customer oriented and management oriented. And so that's the biggest change I've seen. And it certainly tells me it's going to continue to move to the right here and be more and more customer oriented. Our team talks about this all the time, the amount of communication now to customers. The customers are getting better and better at communicating. And where in the past, Ralph, the customer got in their car and drove downtown and went to the address of where they were going, and they kind of showed up there. They didn't spend a lot of time and effort and energy thinking about where am I going to park until they got a block away and they start looking for a place to park. Now the customers have the ability to contact something that we electronically put out there and say, what are my parking options? We have to focus on something that we're not doing enough of, I don't believe at this point, on the back end of it, of being sure we're giving to the customer what they're looking for, their ability to communicate. So once they can communicate, we better be able to communicate back to them. So it's a part of that transition in our industry.
I agree. I think that shift from cigar boxes and, employee heavy is allowing us to concentrate on the customer experience.
I saw my last cigar box in 2012.
Unfortunately for us, we don't have any. But I still see honor boxes in some of the smaller markets in SoCal, which it's still interesting to see that, you kind of put the bill there and you jam it with the metal thing.
When I first started in the business, I mean, I had like I said, I was operations manager of Nashville. I started in the morning at about 6:30 to 7, catching all the winos that were standing back there, them pulling the dollar bills out. So I would go catch them, hold them down, call the cops, have them arrested. I'd leave, go to the next location, do that. And then I would try to get back to my office in time to at least be there so Monroe Carroll could see me.
That's funny. Your trunk was full of cash sometimes too. So
yeah. Oh, yeah, scary times, sometimes with riding around the city picking up cash.
Well, Raf, you were really kind to me when I was newish to the industry, and TPN had just launched our monthly newsletter. If you are not subscribed to our newsletter, you need it. So subscribe. But anyway, in that interview, I learned that you have clearly built a life outside of work by traveling and hanging out with your family. You mentioned your kiddos earlier in the episode. What does 2026 look like for your family? Do you have trips planned? What's on your bucket list? And then kind of the bigger question is, how do you advise people to have a good work-life balance?
My wife is a CPA for a mid-sized tax firm, and but she's a full-time trip planner. And her and her sister really, they have the whole year already sort of figured out, and the weekends and the trips. Last year, I think we were able to hit maybe 12 national parks, which was pretty cool. And during the pandemic, we figured out the best way to at least have some feel normal, right? Is to pick up an RV, and we spent about 8 months on the road. But yeah, last year was pretty cool. The national parks have junior ranger badges for the kids, and they're very passionate about those and collecting it. It allows the kids to what they say, touch grass, right? And just be out there, disconnect from the phones and the tablets. Be out in nature, sorts of, it resets me, right? But yeah, this year definitely have quite a bit of adventures already on the books. But yeah, like this coming weekend, we're going to Death Valley, and looking forward to that. It's I think it's not going to be as hot, but it allows me to really, it reminds me on what truly is important in life, right? Family is front and center. I'm really passionate about what we do, and I'm always excited about parking. But at the end of the day, I think, my boys 12 and 8, and, it's giving me, my real purpose, right? And yeah, thankfully, all I have to do is show up and drive. They take care of the rest. So my job is really pretty simple. They know I don't want to think, outside of work. So, but yeah, no, thanks for asking that.
Yeah, we have a lot in common actually on that note. I also married a travel agent. So all I have to do is pack the cooler and
there we go.
Be on time. But we have 3 kids, all upper teenagers, and we have also raised them in the national parks, hiking and mildly suffering, as you do.
Love it. Yeah.
So maybe we could do an episode on all the national parks we've seen.
Yeah, you got your map already with the pins, right? So
Yep. It's very cool.
It's something easy to do, right? I recommend it.
Yeah.
The tent camping wasn't for the wife, so I needed to upgrade her a little bit. But yeah, it's not easy, right? The work-life balance. I would admit, early on in my career, kind of work really took front and center, because that's what you do. And for you to advance, you got to be a team player. You gotta work all the shifts and spend the hours. That's having the ability, and thankfully I'm with PCI, because it's important for the executive team, for us to figure out how our team, our associates, are able to do that, right? And really spend quality time with their family. So it's important for us.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that Parking Concepts has such a good culture. It's one of the things I love about TPN is I feel like work is really important, but not more important than faith and family.
That's awesome.
We really enjoyed having you. I know your background, and you're very knowledgeable. The most important thing is you have a great view of who you are and what your role is in this industry, and the role of the industry going forward. So it's great to hear that. Really, really great to hear.
Thank you, sir. That means a lot. Thank you.
All right. To our listeners, go have a great rest of your day. I hope you picked up something from today's conversation that will make your work life easier, but also maybe a reminder to keep everything in balance. Have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll see you on our next episode of the Our Parking Industry podcast.
To quote one of the greatest business minds of our time, Charles Munger, he said, "The best thing a human can do is help another human being know more." Here on Our Parking Industry podcast, we want to provide knowledge and resources. If you heard something that sparked your curiosity in today's episode, please reach out on our socials at TPN Consulting. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. See you next time on Our Parking Industry.